Good morning, everyone. Calling the meeting to order. This is the October 10th Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. And I don't think we have to do introductions at this point, but I'll start with the approval of the minutes. I'll move to approve the minutes of September 12th.
Yep, second.
And all in favor? Minutes are approved. We'll move on to our first discussion item, the traffic calming policy. So we had that reviewed by the Montgomery County Planning Commission and also our engineer at Pannoni. So they provided some feedback, and that draft was shared with all of you along with the comments. So I just kind of wanted to go through a couple of the comments and make sure we get some feedback on that. The first one was just adding the definition section. I think that's very straightforward. We can do that. And then the other thing was the eligibility section. So Pannoni made a comment. I'll just read it. In cases where speed is a concern, consider adding a requirement where a suspected speeding problem is a concern. The 85th percentile speed is measured at 5 miles per hour or more over the posted speed limit. So that's the recommendation. I'll start with, I am hesitant to add this as an absolute requirement for eligibility, just because in the past we've put in speed humps for both Iona and Meeting House Lane, and I don't think they were even over 5 miles over the speed limit. I don't recall. It was close.
I don't think it was close. I don't think it was over.
Right. So I don't necessarily want to raise that threshold higher than it is right now. And then I do want to allow some flexibility for context, whether it's around schools or parks or bus stops and things like that. So any thoughts from the committee on that?
No, I agree with you. Context is important, and the speed number, as we know, 25 feels a heck of a lot faster on the streets. So right. I think those are good observations.
Agreed, and especially on a road like Iona, where there's lots of traffic going in multiple directions. I think it doesn't even have to be the speed limit to be a concern.
Okay. And Chief Stray, any thoughts on that?
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we got to take it. And that was one of the things I think we worked on shifting in the whole context of this is that we need to take in all factors.
Right.
And we don't want to limit ourselves.
Right. Okay. So I think we could probably say. I guess let me work on that. We could say something like, I wrote down potential language to confirm a potential speeding concern. Traffic studies will measure vehicle speeds, streets where the 85th percentile speed is near or exceeds the posted limit may be considered for traffic calming with higher priority given to those exceeding it by 5 miles per hour or more. And we can massage that language to fit. I'm not even sure if we need that there, but if we want to include something like that there, we could. Okay. And then under decision making, Pannoni offered to provide a definition for significant issue. And they also made a comment about the language, target speed may be lower than the posted speed limit, especially in school zones or areas with high pedestrian activity. Mm-hmm. I know Chief String, you had similar concerns about just putting that language in there. I'm okay with removing that from the traffic calming policy if that causes a problem in terms of just clarity. I don't know how the committee feels about it.
Well, it feels like if you remove that and you add this idea that the road context be considered, you may capture the spirit of what you're intending to do there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think Pannoni's concern was that it's just hard to quantify that. But okay. That sounds good. And then moving on to the public engagement and committee review section of the policy. So Pannoni offered the recommendation, consider block consensus for implementation. That is 50% approval from residents on the affected street in case most residents on the block do not support a measure. And then he says, typically in traffic calming policies, implementation or removal of traffic calming measures also requires 70% of generally affected property owners to vote in favor or against the measure with at least 60% of votes returned. So, any thoughts on that? I know we've talked about this before, and in terms of like what that would look like in terms of implementation. I think it makes sense not to put it in the eligibility section, but in the implementation part of it.
It just becomes an issue when you have like a big apartment, and it becomes more burdensome to reach that 70% threshold. That's the only time.
Yeah, I thought about that as well.
Yeah.
If it's
it's also hard. It's laborious, I think, to get those data.
Mhm.
And I also think if John and Jeff both agree and Pannoni that this is a safety issue, then it's not about getting 70%. You know, if it's a safety issue, we have an obligation to install a traffic calming measure regardless of the community engagement. So I would hate for us to put eligibility or implementation criteria that is going to need to be superseded by the professional opinion for safety.
Mhm.
I agree. If we identify like a pedestrian hazard for whatever reason, you know, and
Right.
people say, why don't we speed bump? Well, I think
Absolutely.
it'd be neglectful for us to just say, okay, you don't want it, we're not going to put it in.
Absolutely. So I would take out that criteria.
So we don't want to do a block consensus
I
at
would
all,
not.
or any kind of petition required for
Maybe,
implementation.
maybe do it like as an advisor. They'll take it under consideration or something, but make it a little more squishy so that it can be overridden by for safety.
So right now, the traffic calming policy has a recommendation to submit a petition, but it's not required.
Okay.
So I guess the question is, do we want to add it as a requirement at 50% or anything like that?
I would not.
No.
I'm fine with using the professional staff's
Okay.
perspective. And honestly, I think, you know, that really also falls under this idea of road context. You know, maybe it's road and community context, a
Mhm.
little more broader.
Okay.
I think if without percentage limits there, it's fine, you know, because obviously we want to engage the residents, you know, just
Right.
not make it a decision.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's kind of a standard operating procedure, how the borough includes community. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
omit those.
I've seen both, like I see both sides to it. Like on the one hand, if, you know, more than half of the residents are not supportive of this measure and, you know, and it was only a handful of residents that came forward, then, you know, I feel like it would be helpful to have that input. But at the same time, I don't want it to become cumbersome.
Absolutely.
I think,
And it is a safety issue.
I think getting the input is paramount to getting compliance with a lot of stuff. And making everybody feel like they've been heard, and so that, you know, perhaps the professional staff can hear concerns that maybe weren't thinking about.
Mhm.
So I think it's helps with compliance to get buy-in, of course. To that degree, it's helpful. But
Mhm.
again, safety has got to be thought of, you know,
Right.
primary.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll leave that as is.
I would take that out.
Okay.
I would take out the percentages, Jean.
Right, it's not in there right
Oh,
now.
okay.
That was his recommendation to.
Oh,
add
good,
that.
okay.
And then I just want to go through the toolbox really quick. There are some things that I had added in there that were not necessarily part of the active transportation plan toolkit that they're working on finalizing right now. And those things were pavement markings. So that's use of various striping or graphics to alert drivers' attention to reduce speed, shade trees and landscaping, and daylighting and corner clearing, which is basically at the intersections removal of parking or vegetation or any other obstacles that might impede the sightlines for the pedestrians. And street murals or intersections. I know Media Borough has done those with some success in their intersections. And then also decorative textured crosswalks, which are PennDOT approved. They have designs that are particularly approved, certain patterns and colors, and then decorative textured pavement, things like stamped asphalt. So those are not currently included in the active transportation plan, but I think these are things that could be considered for our borough. And I wanted to get, and maybe Jeff, maybe you could also provide some feedback on whether those things are feasible and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, my only real concern, with, like painted intersections is that I always feel they're distracting because people want to slow down to either look at it. So I would potentially see some issues with that. And then, my concern with like a stamped asphalt or like a colored asphalt is, I know they're not the most expensive to install, but just maintenance, how would it hold up? What additional maintenance it would require from our staff to keep it clean? How it would hold up to snow plows, road salt, just things like that. So I might get in touch with a few of the folks who have it and just kind of pick their brain on it.
Okay.
I certainly appreciate it from an aesthetic, I think they do look sharp and catch your eye, but I just want to make sure that we're not adding maintenance to our staff here.
Okay. Do you think we might be able to get that feedback in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay. I think that would be helpful. And do you guys have any thoughts on that as well?
Can I ask, John, you had some concerns about murals and safety, didn't you?
I think there was discussion of whether or not there's a liability issue because what is, isn't there one where you paint like a raised?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think.
It's like an optical illusion, yeah.
I can't remember if we got anything from Delaware Valley Trust on it or not, as far as whether or not there's an issue there, if it causes, if it's deemed to, like, what Jeff alluded to, person's driving up and they slam on the brakes.
Yeah.
Somebody rear ends them and they go, well, I stopped because of this.
Absolutely,
Does that
yeah.
become a contributing factor?
Yeah.
Distraction.
And are murals PennDOT approved? Street murals?
I don't think that's in the PennDOT traffic calming handbook in terms of their guidelines.
So we should probably not add something that's not in their handbook.
I think it also gives us some discretion as to what we can do on our own roads. However, I don't believe it's included in terms of street art. They do have the stamped asphalt, they have the textured crosswalks and things like that. That's all included in the manual.
I would support using that or having Jeff and John explore that.
Okay. So we can kind of go through those and see which ones are feasible for the borough and then narrow that down.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at where it's actually been implemented. Take a road trip out and talk to the municipalities where it's been implemented and see in real life how it works. And that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I actually went to a traffic safety workshop, and I think it was either somebody from Media Borough was representing that project and talked a lot about it in detail. And it does require a lot of coordination for something like that.
Yeah.
They had like a media arts council who kind of oversaw the whole project. And
So taking a ride out there, seeing how it actually works, how it feels,
Right.
would be, kind of key to understanding the real life consequences of something like that.
right, yeah.
Implement, yeah.
Okay. And the other, I think those were the main comments and feedback from the engineer. And do we get a chance to get any feedback from the fire company? as
Yeah,
well?
they sent their feedback back last night,
Okay,
and it was all very minor, mostly group level.
okay, great, all right. All right, so I think we can just finalize these changes. We'll get the feedback from Jeff regarding those, the toolkit measures. And then, once we make these changes, do we want to send this back to Pannoni and Montgomery County for the Planning Commission for a final review, or is this okay to just vote on once it's changed in November?
I think if you just want to vote to recommend to council, that's fine, unless there's any major changes that are made, I don't think they need to do that.
Okay. Okay, so we'll vote on this at the next Public Health and Safety meeting. And if there's no other comments on that, we can move on to the next item.
I'll add one thing, sorry.
Oh,
I was
sure.
doing a little quick research. So Delaware Plus, our liability carrier, they have an article published from September last year, and it was regarding the rainbow crosswalks. They said they're not prohibited. They encourage anyone that has these to contact their liability contact immediately. It goes into murals and other asphalt art is what they call it. And it says that it's generally outside the scope of the MUTCD. It does not prohibit them, but rather it could cause interference. So while they don't come out and say that it's not prohibited,
Okay,
it doesn't seem like they're in favor. I'll share this with you.
okay,
Okay.
okay. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the Price Avenue striping pilot program. Emily, can you provide an update on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So, today we will be sending out letters to all those who received a letter in April announcing the pilot program, and it's just a reminder to provide any feedback by end of this month, and then this will be on your agenda in November, for a possible recommendation to council based on feedback.
Okay, and will that feedback be compiled and sent to the committee?
Yes, and right now you should have access to it in SharePoint.
Okay.
We've just been adding emails as they come in, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other update on that?
How are you reaching out to the community?
We're sending everyone a letter, who received one, yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
then we'll also put it, we can put it in our newsletter as well.
Is that- All right. Is there any follow-up to make sure, they've been contacted? Or,
No, once the letters go out,
okay,
then we have where they can send their feedback to.
okay. All right.
So in terms of timeline, are we just keeping that as a discussion item for next week or at next month's meeting? Or are we, I don't remember actually where we landed on that. I know we talked about that.
Jeff had said because of the weather getting colder, even if we recommended to council next month, they probably can't paint the lines if that's what we choose to do until the spring.
Right, okay. So we could potentially vote on it next month and then just hold off on implementation.
So we would touch up, the existing, paint that's out there now. And that, but we couldn't use our actual crosswalk paint until springtime.
Okay,
So we would go in there and just respray paint it, so it looks crisp, and then in springtime we'll go out there.
okay, okay. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, we'll move on to pedestrian bike accessibility. There's no update on the mainline greenway. The active transportation plan, the steering committee meeting is meeting at the end of this month on October 29th, and they'll have a finalized plan for that. Was there anything else regarding?
No, that would be
Okay.
nothing.
So
I'm sorry, when is that meeting?
October 29th is the steering committee meeting. And so they'll be presenting the finalized plan then. And then we'll move on to committee reports. So today we have Joe Toscano from the Environmental Advisory Committee. I believe you have an update on the leaf blower ordinance.
Yeah, so, just that one item from the EAC is to talk about gas-powered leaf blowers and gas-powered landscaping equipment. I don't know if Cindy and others have the memo, but we can.
Oh, you know what? Let me forward it right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll kind of summarize it as we're discussing too. So this is a topic the EAC have been studying for some time now. As I think many of you know, we hear complaints from residents about the noise and the fumes and many other concerns related to these gas-powered leaf blowers. And in addition, Lower Merion Township is interested in moving forward with implementing an ordinance that would prohibit their use. I'll talk more about what they're considering. So just to give some background, the EAC has been looking at this issue since late 2023. We've talked with residents, their concerns about it. We've talked with Jeff a number of times about how the borough's Public Works Department has switched to using electric landscaping equipment. We had a nice demonstration on our birthday last year, working with Public Works on demonstrating some equipment. EAC members are meeting with Penn Environment Working Group to talk about this as a regional issue and to think about what other municipalities are doing and to try and coordinate activities across different municipalities. This is especially around when I think about Norwood and Lower Merion, you know, and aligning what the two municipalities are doing. And we had a nice workshop from the American Green Zone Alliance, which provides education on using electric equipment in the past spring. As we studied all this, you know, some of the things that are clear on the use of gas-powered leaf blowers and other kinds of landscaping equipment that's gas-powered in general, uses these two-stroke engines. They release a lot of pollutants into the air. They're a source of greenhouse gas emissions, other types of air pollution as well, carbon dioxide, particulate matter, nitrogen oxides. These are harmful to the environment, but they're also harmful to human health. Some of these pollutants are carcinogens, they cause respiratory ailments. There's a lot of health and environmental issues associated with these for both the operators and, you know, for the broader community. You'll see in the memo when the EAC sent to Gene yesterday some additional details about Montgomery County and sort of the environmental aspects of these. The alternative to using gas-powered equipment is to use electric equipment or to use non-powered equipment. So there's a number of more environmentally sustainable approaches to managing landscaping. Maybe you're familiar with things like the leaves approaches and things like that, which are better for the soil health and wildlife. But in terms of using powered equipment, electric equipment sort of solves a lot of these problems that I just mentioned in terms of the health and environmental impacts. As I mentioned, Public Works has used electric equipment for the borough since 2022. I think very successfully. I'll defer to Jeff if he wants to speak more on that. And a number of other municipalities have been considering this. So in Pennsylvania right now, I don't believe there are any municipalities that have a ban on using gas-powered leaf blowers, but in New Jersey, in New York State, and other areas, including some larger cities that are looking at this, like Baltimore, Maryland, they've started to adopt a variety of approaches and policies to this. Some of them start with a seasonal use restriction and then go potentially to a year-round ban. Others adopt various other policies to sort of get to the point where basically you're not having these gas-powered leaf blowers being used in the communities. So the EAC looked at this, like I said, over the past year and a half or so, and one of the things that we took away from it, working with the group from Penn Environment, they provided us a template ordinance, and I can share that with you guys as well, that talks about basically phasing out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers over, say, a 2-year period. And one advantage that that phase-out period has in terms of feasibility and practicality is that it gives homeowners, landscapers, other operators time to transition from using the gas-powered equipment to the electric. So I think, you know, as we hear feedback about possible concerns with getting rid of the use of gas-powered leaf blowers, we hear concerns about cost, and I think sort of having that phase-out period is one way to help address that, so that as the current equipment reaches the end of its lifespan, they can transition to getting electric. So. Lower Merion Township, their EAC has looked at this as well and has provided their recommendations, and their township staff is proposing to adopt restrictions on gas-powered leaf blowers specifically starting next year. And so what the township staff proposed was to do seasonal restrictions such that they would be prohibited from January 1st to March 1st, which is sort of the winter season, and from May 1st to October 1st, which is the summer season. It would still be allowed from March to May, spring, and October to January, which is the fall. Those are the two periods where they, from their analysis, there was heavy reuse. On Wednesday at the Lower Merion Township Commissioners Sustainability Committee meeting, they modified that proposal to phase in a year-round restriction eventually. So what they would do is starting next year, they would do those seasonal restrictions I just mentioned. Starting in 2028, there would be an additional restriction on the spring, so they won't be allowed in the fall. And then starting 2029, they would go to a year-round restriction. So that's what Lower Merion Township is currently considering. In terms of the EAC's recommendations, just from an environmental and health standpoint, the best approach is to phase out use of all gas powered equipment, not just leaf blowers, but also weed whackers, hedge trimmers, things like that. That's our recommendation just from an environmental health standpoint. We know there are other considerations, including alignment with Lower Merion Township. So, if that approach wasn't feasible, for one reason or another, an alternative would be to adopt what Lower Merion is considering, which would put the two municipalities also in alignment, and then have this phased approach that would start seasonal restrictions and then lead to year-round restrictions. You would then have to, if you wanted to revisit the topic of devices other than leaf blowers, because the Lower Merion Township one is just about leaf blowers. But of course, all of this equipment has similar environmental and health impact. It's not just leaf blowers.
I think we have to do whatever Lower Merion does. I mean, we have to take a regional approach. These landscape companies are not going to do one thing in Lower Merion and one in Narberth. So we're really at the mercy of Lower Merion here. I think, boy, what a way to overcomplicate and think something very simple. You're not going to buy new EV equipment and use it from March to I mean, that is silly in my mind. Do it. Give folks a 6-month runway or a year runway and then ban the darn things. But that feels like Lower Merion has made a decision. I think for us to do anything that does not mirror Lower Merion, for better or worse, would not be implemented. So thanks for doing all this. I mean, I appreciate all the research you've done for this. I'm just excited to actually then do something because we've been talking about this for so long.
Any other thoughts from the committee?
It does make sense, especially with the big landscape companies, because they're the ones with the biggest expense. And they don't just work in the borough or just, Lower Merion, they cross over. So it really kind of doesn't make sense to buck what they're going to have to do with the bigger community around us.
And this particular point came up in the discussion at the Sustainability Committee meeting on Wednesday too, about sort of alignment between adjacent municipalities.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially, the contractors won't know where the borders are.
Right, exactly.
So it really helps with both the communication and enforcement.
Have we looked at like Havertown and some Delaware County municipalities?
So Swarthmore was considering this last year,
Mhm.
tabled it for now, but they were considering banning the gas burning posts as of last year. I don't know what the current status is.
I'm thinking of ones that are like immediately adjacent.
Oh, Delaware, Philly.
Philly, and also Havertown.
Well,
Delaware County,
the
yes,
landscape, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, to my knowledge, Lower Merion Township is the furthest along in advertising and proposal.
Okay, got it.
Great.
I know there's been a lot of discussion around this and research around it, and I also attended the AGS workshop, and they provide a lot of information as to the rationale for why we're starting with the leaf blowers as kind of the low-hanging fruit. And basically, if we can start there with something that creates so much pollution, it could, maybe open up other bans for other electrical equipment. But I agree that it should align with Lower Merion. I think from an enforcement and communication perspective, it would be a lot easier to implement. So I agree with that. And I'm glad they also added the amendment to eventually phase it out year round. And the years for that I saw was 2028.
So phase one, which is the summer and winter restrictions, would go into effect 2026, so May 1st, 2026.
Right.
Phase two, which would be restrictions in winter, spring, and summer, goes into effect January 1st, 2028. And then the year-round restriction would go into effect January 1st, 2029.
Okay,
So basically next year and then 2 years.
okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. So, I guess next steps would be for would it be the staff or the EAC working together to help draft that a sister ordinance for Narberth?
So could we just wait, that we talked about this before, let's let LM solicitor pay to write the ordinance, because we're just gonna mirror it and then
Right.
hand it over and save us some money.
Well, that's already drafted, right?
They have a draft, but
Once they
now
vote on it.
now they've amended.
Right.
Yeah.
I can send it to you. I mean, I think it would make sense if borough staff could get in contact with Paloma, you over in Mary Stanford.
Yeah, let's make sure it gets passed. Once it gets passed, let's take it,
Right.
hand it over and
Okay.
later.
But I can send you another video. For meetings.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for that
You're
update.
welcome.
Thank you for your research on that. Okay. So we'll move on to departmental reports. The fire company report is in the packet, and then anything from the police.
Just in addition to what's in the packet, the bus patrol system has been live for I think 6 weeks now. So it's going well. We're unfortunately getting citations in to be issued, but nice part about it is violation occurred, we're able to follow up with it now. So
Right. Do you have the
Moving on.
latest count on the citations?
I'd probably say we're close to 40 at this point.
Okay,
So
in Narberth.
yeah, just in Narberth.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
And I don't believe we have anyone for public comment.
We do not.
Okay. Okay, so then if there's nothing else, I will move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, meeting is adjourned at 10:32. Thank you.